We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
What is up, Cal fans? We are back with another episode of the Golden Bear Cast. You're here. You're with us. You know that we're a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. And we are fresh off of a trip to Notre Dame. Alongside me, co-host Rob, new videographer, field pass extraordinaire. What's happening?
I don't know about you, but it took me like a full day to recover from that trip. Like, I was basically out of commission all of Monday.
Your Monday was my Sunday. And I was actually staying at my sister's place. And what I told her was I wanted to have a rehab a rehab Sunday. And the only thing I did well was I went to hot yoga, which was fantastic, to just kind of like let these demons exit.
Just sweat it out.
Sweat it out. It was incredible, very restorative. But then I flipped that and went to Au Cheval. So I felt great, and then I had Au Cheval, which was delicious, and then I didn't feel so good after that. And so my sister had all these things we could do. You know, there was a boiler room DJ set we could attend, another friend playing at Lincoln Hall, or it was like watch a movie. And I think I said, I'm just going to be on the couch and watch football, and I'm so sorry. So I kind of owe my sister a better effort than the one that she got, but that's just that was the shape that I was in on Sunday, just dead to the world. Tell me about your Monday.
I mean, I even called you on Sunday asking if you wanted to grab dinner with me and some of my buddies, and you were like, I'm on the couch and I'm not leaving.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
My Monday was just exhausting. I think I slept a total of 16 hours over a 24-hour period. Like, just because I was running on such little energy throughout the weekend. Like, because I got in Friday night at around 11. Then we woke up for the game on Saturday around, what time was that? We had to get to the social place by 7. And then we didn't get home till like 11-ish because we went and got pizza after the game. Yeah, and then Sunday was just like hanging out with buddies, going on the architecture tour, seeing one of my best friends growing up who lives out there, and it was just great to see. It was hilarious because here's a side story. The valedictorian from my class graduating out of high school, she had a kid last year apparently, and was having the kid's first birthday, and my buddy still hangs out with her and her husband like once a month, like him and his wife and the valedictorian and her husband. And so he was like, do you want to go? And I was like, am I invited? Like, can I just show up to a baby's first birthday? And he was like, yeah, Kirsten said to be fine. So and then she texted me like on Saturday night all of a sudden. She's like, I'm so excited to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. And then, yeah, I just ended up at a first birthday for a little baby girl named Nora. Happy birthday, Nora. I don't know if Kirsten or anyone's listening to this, but yeah, that was super weird. I saw some people I haven't seen since high school. And then I just spent the day with Cal friends going on the architecture tour, then back with my buddy, and we went out to dinner. He took me to this delicious ass Puerto Rican place. Like a fried plantain sandwich with rice and beans that was mixed in with pork fat. Oh my God. And it was $9. It was so cheap. Oh my God.
Wait, was that from Joko or whatever?
No, it's Jibaritos y Más. Oh, good God. That might be my first meal every time I go to Chicago now. It was that good. It was that good. I was stuffed for the rest of the night. But yeah, that was my Sunday. And then I had a flight, 5 a.m. on Monday out of Midway. And my buddy thankfully drove me.
Who is this person? He drove you at 3 a.m?
4, yeah, like 4-ish. He's one of my closest high school buddies. We went to school together from the 4th grade up until we graduated high school. So I've known him since I was 10, and we're in our 30s now. So it's 20 years plus.
Sounds like a saint.
Yeah, Matt Kearney, if you're listening to this, Andy says you're a saint. I actually wanted the two of you to meet, but the timing didn't allow it. But next time.
Well, we were all dead for a variety of reasons, but primarily it was the game.
Yeah.
The Notre Dame Cal game. So let's run through some stats first before we dive into the overall game day experience.
Got it. So here we go. So Cal visiting Notre Dame. Ultimately, if you've watched this game, Cal lost 17-24. The Bears actually took a lead going into the fourth quarter. They were up 17-14, and then they gave up a field goal to tie it with 48 minutes left in the fourth, and then ultimately gave up a 6-yard touchdown pass to Michael Mayer, their tight end, at the 9-minute mark in the fourth quarter, and that was the end of the game. The game actually almost became tied after the Bears got the ball back off of a targeting call and a fumble and weird stuff happening, and almost threw a Hail Mary to tie the game up to go back to send the game into overtime. But alas, that was not in the cards of fate. Some stats for you here. First downs, Cal 18, Notre Dame 17. Rushing yards, Notre Dame 147, Cal 112. Both averaging 3.6 yards per rush, both with one rushing touchdown each. Passing, the Bears 184 yards, Notre Dame 150. Jack Plummer 16 of 37, no interceptions. Pine 17-23, no interceptions. Average per attempt for Plummer 5, with Pine at 6.5. Average for completion, though, Plummer with 11.5 and Pine of just 8.8. Total offensive yards, the Bears 296 to Notre Dame's 297. And total offensive plays, the Bears just ran about 4 more. Some other stats for you here. DeCarlos Brooks with 45 yards gained. Plummer with 81 yards gained, but also lost 47 due to sacks. He was sacked 6 times in this game. Estime was the big guy. God, I still have PTSD listening to the game day announcer saying
Audric Estime.
First down for your Fighting Irish. No, it's a Fighting Irish first down.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
God, he said Notre Dame in such a weird way. I mean, that's the thing is, like, I know why. I kind of got why people make fun of Notre Dame, but I also had a deep appreciation for just how friendly everybody was. I realize I'm getting ahead of it, but I just wanted to appreciate that Audric Estime. And then it's like the other running back has a play, and it's
Chris Tyree.
Chris Tyree gained to the left, and then it's like Audric Estime is back in the game, and it's like Audric Estime gain of 3 yards. Like, I was looking back at a Notre Dame fan, I was like doing that voice in the stands, and the Notre Dame fan was like smiling and laughing. And then shout out to my buddy Anderson. I call him Franco. So when you might have met him, but the whole time he's like, how am I going to make the pod? This is how you're going to make the pod. We're in the car going home after the game, and he hops on Instagram, which I don't have, and he DMs Audric Estime. It says, Audric Estime. And then he DMs, what's his name? Michael Mayer?
Yeah.
He DMs Michael Mayer and says, or no, he lets me do it. And I said, hey, Michael, are you friends with Audric Estime? Anyways, it was really, we enjoyed it a lot. We had a lot of fun with that. That was just incredible.
But that's pretty much the stats. I mean, defensively, the Notre Dame had 6 sacks for a loss of 47 yards. They also had 8 tackles for a loss for 53 yards. The Bears with just 2 sacks on the day, 1.5 by Jackson Sherman, who had an outstanding day. 4 tackles for loss for 13 yards, and only 1 pass breakup. Jackson Sherman, of course, 15 total tackles, 11 assisted, 4 solo, 1.5 sacks, 2.0 tackles for loss. And then Femi Oladejo with 2 solo tackles, 10 assisted, for a total of 12 tackles and 1 fumbled recovery. So yeah, that's kind of it in terms of like the stats.
Dude, I mean, I think, Jackson's sermon, that's the one. I mean, he was everywhere. It was just like one of those. I was like, I can't wait to see what his final totals are going to be, because it was just like he was everywhere.
I honestly thought it'd be higher. Like, just from watching the game, like with my eyes, I thought it'd be higher than 15. I thought he got to like 18 or 19 tackles.
It was Evan Weaver-esque, and it's definitely that might actually be a pod prediction that comes true. He may lead the Pac-12 in tackles. That could happen. Yeah, I mean,
where do we start?
I kind of want to start like just with the hospitality thing that I mentioned before. I mean, when we were walking over, so we're all walking over together, which was really fun. It was kind of like this unique opportunity of bringing together, these guys that I spent my entire college experience was with the guys that I was out there. Most of the guys I was out there with, some of them not. And then I get to kind of bring them into the new family that I have, which is this Right for California family, where all of my friends that followed Cal football religiously ended up stopping, and I had to end up finding a new group of people that cared about football because no one else did, and it was like,
you found us degenerates.
I wrote that note to Avi, and the rest is history. So it was like really cool to like finally kind of combine these two groups together that had been separate.
Yeah.
And we're all walking over to the game, like you're there, and
took us 30 minutes, by the way.
It was a long time.
It took us 30 minutes to get to the tailgate, like where our tailgate was located.
Some of us were not thrilled about that. Shout out to Thomas. And then this dude pulls up on a golf cart and was like, welcome to Notre Dame. Hope you guys have a great time. Let us know if we can do anything so that you can have a better experience. I was like, what?
Excuse me?
We're wearing Cal colors, right? It was just crazy. So it was incredible. And it got to the point where we were walking into the game, and a guy turned over to me and he was like, hey, how's your experience been? I mean, we got asked that so many times. How you doing? How's your experience been? Are you enjoying your trip out? We're so grateful to have you here. And so this guy is giving me the same speech, and I was like, you know what? We have had a great time. The hospitality's been incredible. If you're ever in Berkeley, don't expect the same thing.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I think he was a little taken aback. I was like, just giving you a heads up. It's not gonna be like this.
We're not gonna be hostile, but we're just not gonna care.
I'm not gonna ask you how your day is going and if I can get you any water to better improve your experience. I'm probably just gonna give you some side eye and make you continue your climb to the stadium.
We also, I mean, on that walk from our tailgate to the game or to the stadium, we lost you for a little bit. You disappeared. I was with your buddies, and you had disappeared. Like, I was with like Stacy and Chris and Nam, and then some of your buddies. And then we were like, "Where's Andy?" And they're like, "I don't know. Did we lose him? We lost him. We lost you right in front of Touchdown Jesus."
Oh, I don't know if we went that way.
So what? So we did go with some of your buddies though, but it might not have been. Yeah. By the way, we lost you at some point because I filmed video of when we were passing the band that was playing, which by the way they were playing Top Gun, and which was awesome to hear, and that entire group of like just massive people out there listening to the band was awesome. We have that too, but I don't think we just don't go and listen to that often. So I have you on the video there, and then you disappear.
That's hilarious. Yeah, the mysterious. I have no idea, but it was definitely a long walk. We basically walked across the entire campus, which was amazing.
Yeah. And also, you took a picture of a building that you thought was really impressive, except it was a pizza parlor, which was arguably one of the greatest stories. It's just Andy stops, takes his phone out, and he's taking a picture of a building, and then Avi's like, that's a pizza parlor, right? And you look on the first floor, and it's a pizza shop.
Really?
Yeah.
I just wanted to. I distinctly remember we were kind of like cruising through, and I wasn't taking note of anything that was happening, and I just sort of thought to myself, like, I'm gonna want to go back and revisit this and actually have a good memory of what the campus looked like and the architecture, and just sort of like, and that ended up becoming one of the things that I think I was most grateful for was. Because I haven't done the big away trips. I didn't do Ole Miss. I didn't do Texas.
Yeah, same here.
I haven't done those. So I think for me, it was like seeing the campus became such a cool piece of it. So much so that when I was 20 minutes from Madison for work, I just drove to Madison. I was like, I want the same experience. And Madison was very different. But it was just so, I mean, the architecture, that's hilarious. That was a pizza parlor. I did not know that. And was that? I remember that. Was that when I pulled it? Everyone was like, and Andy's just walking randomly into a field, and I turn around and took a picture of the building.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah. It was just incredible. I just thought the architecture. People asked me today, and they're like, how was it? And I was like, well, no, how was Notre Dame? I was like, Notre Dame is like if you took an unlimited amount of money and an unlimited amount of space, and we're like, I'm going to create a university with a lens towards Catholicism. That's what Notre Dame is like. It's just meticulous in every single way, but not in a way that comes off like Duke, where Duke comes off like really arrogant.
A little elitist.
Yeah, like Duke comes off like when I went, this knowledge is old. So if anyone's offended by this was like 2007. But when I visited in high school, Duke is like, we're Duke, we're great. It's like, oh, everyone, there's a 100-year wait list to get married at this chapel and blah, blah, blah. And there's people chasing basketball players around for autographs. And it's like, dude, like, get over yourself. And there's none of that. I didn't really feel that at Notre Dame, but it had the niceness of you could understand how that might exist there.
Yep.
And yet it just was like classic Midwest, hospitality. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I was walking around and I FaceTimed my parents because this was my dream school coming out of high school. Like, this is where I wanted to go to school. This was also my dad's dream school when he was going to college. So, going like just it was just like, oh, like could I like, and I was FaceTiming my parents and I was like, you know what, like walking around here. If I had gotten in, I could really envision myself going to this, having gone to this school. Like it would have, it's just everything fits so well. I mean, granted, outside of the university, there's nothing. It's literally like just plains and trees. But as a university itself, like if you want to go to a place that has like a campus feel, right? Like just your prototypical college campus, everything is on site for you. You don't need to go anywhere else. That's probably a top tier place to be. And so once again, everything Andy said, the experience walking around, just the vibes on game day were absolutely impeccable. So many tailgates, good Lord, like on campus all throughout. You saw food trucks, you saw like barbecues, you saw like student groups out there like grilling hot dogs and hamburgers, like, and you see like the parents, and I mean you see this in Berkeley too, but like just the parents and kids out there and the older generation, and you just see the total breadth of fandom that's there to enjoy every Saturday these games, and then to walk into that stadium and seeing it packed. Like this is a Notre Dame team that was winless and lost to Marshall in that same stadium just the past week, but to come in with the same energy from the students to everyone, like, I mean, I guess this is a perfect segue into that. Like being on the field when the pregame stuff happens, right? Everyone knows the chants. Everyone knows what to say and do. Like when the musical cues hit, like just the entire like chemistry of both the people, the fans, and the players, and everyone else involved with the game day experience was just like, how we always used to like look at, why would you want to go and play there? That's in the middle of nowhere. Like after visiting Notre Dame, I was like, okay, yeah, I get why. You go and you watch that game, and you're standing on the field with an official visit pass, and you absorb this type of environment. Why wouldn't you want to play there? Like if you just take the football experience alone, why wouldn't you want to be in that environment? Of course. Like it was just I had a smile on my face the entire time. Like just as a college football fan, just as a fan of sports, I was like, this is what it's all about. Like this feeling of camaraderie, this feeling of tradition, and there's no other words I can use to describe it.
So we've officially lost Rob to Notre Dame for those that are taking score at home. Sounds good. See you later. I'll enjoy listening to you on the Notre Dame podcast. Yeah, but I mean, I totally agree. I think the one thing I will say that was really cool, like there was just so many Cal fans, many Cal fans. We traveled so well to that game.
20,000 was the number I heard.
That feels high to me, but like 12 to 15,
it could work. It could be true.
Question.
Yeah.
When we were walking in to the gate, we started the "Roll on You Bears" chant, and all you heard thereon after was "Roll on You Bears" echoing through that side of the stadium.
Yeah.
So even as you're walking up the ramp, you're hearing the "Roll on You Bears" like coming up.
Yeah.
It was so cool. I have a video of it, and it's like all you can hear is "Roll on You Bears." And even my buddy turned to the Notre Dame fan and was like, and the Notre Dame fan was like, "Yeah, that was impressive." So I think there was just like such an atmosphere, even as an away team, to be able to kind of come in and have that many people there, that it just felt different. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know this, like myself included. Notre Dame undergrad enrollment is 12,000. That stadium holds 75. So the vast majority are not existing students that are at that game. That is very much alumni and people that live close, and maybe people that don't live that close. So to be able to pull that out exactly as you're saying, like after Marshall, and have that stadium packed, and it was really special. It was cool, and it was a fun dynamic, kind of back and forth between like celebrating and the Cal chants. And man, do they have a huge band! Notre Dame has a huge band.
It's like half their student body is in the band.
Yeah, it's crazy. Notre Dame's band was wild. And then so we kind of watched the procession in, and they had this like chant. It's really funny. They had a chant where they're like, "Here come the Irish."
Yeah.
And then the other one was like, then they would have someone respond to that and like, "Beat them Bears."
Yeah.
And it was like, "Here come the Irish." And I said that I'm going to use that for any time I go places and be like, "Here come the Irish." You know what I mean? Like, this is what I mean. It's like, it's so easy to make fun of, but at the same time, like, it's actually cool when you're there and you're witnessing it. Like, there's so much tradition, and even if it's a little silly on the outside, like, it really does have this mystique that comes along with it that just kind of fits naturally into place. So, Environment was top notch.
Top notch. It was, and the just how loud it gets. Holy crap! That stadium got deafening.
That's so funny because I actually didn't think it was that loud. I mean, it got loud when they made good plays, and I did feel that, but I didn't feel it was to me it wasn't Autzen loud. Like Autzen, I can't hear myself think, and Autzen is still kind of the barometer I hold every other stadium to.
Well, that's probably the perspective difference too, right? Because I'm on the field, so all of the sound is just being funneled down onto the field. That's probably why Cal went with the silent count. Because there were moments where, like how on third down, they play this jingle where it's like third down, and then they play like an EDM song. The moment that song kicks in, everyone knows to just start yelling like crazy.
Dude, we need to steal this.
Oh my gosh. It was amazing.
We have to steal that.
Yeah.
We have to steal it.
Yeah.
One, we need bigger video boards, but that's a different point. We need to steal those little things.
We need better sound.
All right, fine.
The audio video board, I could care less, but that sound.
We're saving that for a different pod. But like for them to be able to come in and then like drop that little like Lil Jon, turn down for what? Yeah. Have that huge bass. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like having that bass and that sound system.
Yeah, that's what
really
helps.
Like on the back, and then all the crowd just like gets so into it.
Yeah,
you really are priming your audience in a way that we just don't do.
Yep.
And I felt like that was one of those things where I was like, yeah, we should steal that for sure.
Yeah, it was. There were moments where like there was a couple people like to my left, literally maybe one arm's length away, and when it was a third down, I couldn't hear them talking. Like wow. That's how loud it got. Because like literally just a moment before they're having a conversation, I could hear them talking, and then the moment the third down kicks in, and then everyone starts yelling, it's out. Like I can't hear crap. So, man, just absolutely chilling that experience.
It was very agreed. It was one of those where you get chills, and there were a couple of different moments in the game when I tried to like make sure that I took a deep breath and like understood where I was, and
in the moment,
obviously that photo of me after the game where I'm just like sadly staring at the field. So many good photos.
Can I add one more thing? Because we want to give the people just like maybe a little glimpse into some of the parts of the stadium and things you might not get into, but the press box at Notre Dame was absolutely stellar. The views from it were absolutely amazing. They have a outside like patio terrace on both sides of the press box. So you just open a door, and it's like there's like sofa chairs, and then there's like one level down, like a half alleyway, and that's where the big TV camera is. But you can still walk down there and kind of look. And I have some pictures from that spot, which I'll put up later on my Instagram, and I'll put it up, on Right for Cal. But just the absolute, like, the vistas you see just the blue sky. It was like a perfect day for football too. Just the blue sky. It wasn't too hot. You got the shade every once in a while with the Midwestern clouds, and but back to the press box, like just state of the art, really comfortable. Like they had there's a back alleyway where everyone walks through to like get to the sides, and in there's like a couple of tables with chairs if you just want to sit there, and then they also have like TVs like hung on the wall, so the game is playing. So if you don't want to like sit on press row, or you're out like getting a little food or drink, like you can do all that. The coolest part about the press box, in my opinion, though, is that they give pizza as a snack after the game, which I thought was amazing. So I didn't go up. I only went up to the press box twice, but in the photo room, I didn't think it was going to be in the photo room, but I came back after the game to pack up my stuff, and lo and behold, on the table, there's like 8 boxes of hot Papa John's just there for everyone to eat as like a late game snack.
It's so funny. I mean, it really is what we talked about before. It's just like, if you want to create a championship level program, do it everywhere.
Yeah.
Do it everywhere.
And I think the best part for me about all of that was everyone who was working there was a Notre Dame fan. So even the people that were checking me into the press box and like me afterwards, like dropping off my like vest and stuff, they were all watching the game on TV, and they were like getting antsy, towards the end of the game where we're starting to drive, and up until that Hail Mary moment. So like you can definitely tell that they're working, but they're also fans, and that's probably what adds into just the hospitality environment of it, where they understand that they're representatives of the team that they love so much, that they're not just going to be dismissive, or this is just a job. Like, this is more than a job to a lot of them, and how they talk to us.
Love that. Good call out. And I kind of want to take something that you talked about. You talked about the Hail Mary, and I'm going to tie in a bunch of things that we've already talked about today. One, you mentioned Top Gun, and that the band was playing Top Gun, and that was the greater theme of the day was Top Gun. And then you've also mentioned the Hail Mary. So Rob, you know this story that I had, I believe.
Oh God.
So when we're on this last drive, so painting the scenario, we have the possession where we get ourselves in this 4th and 15 from our own 2, and we decide to punt. And Jameson saves us with a fantastic punt. We hold Notre Dame, and we get the ball back. And so I turn back to the group, and I give the speech from Top Gun Maverick, where Tom Cruise is talking about the miracles. And I got this idea from my friend Warren, so I can't say it was my own idea. But he was like, we need a miracle. And I was like, the first miracle.
Oh, God.
That's the first miracle. And then, so basically, as these are happening, so the first one is, God, which one came? I'm trying to remember which one came first. The first one is not the fumble. The first one is the interception. So Plummer throws the interception, and then for whatever reason, because it was such a bad pass, the Notre Dame defender just decides to try and destroy Jaden Ott and gets called for targeting. And so I turned to him, I said, that's miracle number 1. Then we're continuing our somewhat painful, somewhat interesting drive downfield, and it looks like it's all over. And so sure enough, so that's like, originally you're like, okay, great, we lost the game. And then it's like, oh no, we didn't lose the game. So classic Cal, like, all right, we're back in this thing. Then Plummer, of course, do some shovel pass. It goes terribly wrong, is picked up by the other team. Touchdown. I'm like, great, that's a pretty Cal way to end. Game-winning, game-sealing, defensive touchdown. And sure enough, it gets called back. Plummer's knee is down, and Cal gets the ball back for one more play. So I turn and I go, that's miracle number 2.
Oh my goodness.
And then the ball goes up in the air into the end zone, and Hunter ends up on the ground contorting his body trying to catch this damn ball as it's knocked out of the air and falls incomplete. And finally someone was like, we were just asking for too many miracles. But that was like the progression of the end of that game was very in line with the Top Gun movie and Tom Cruise talking about the miracles needed to pull it off. So ultimately we didn't pull it off.
So ultimately we didn't complete the Top Gun mission is what you're saying.
No, we didn't complete the Top Gun mission. But anyways, like, what was your perspective on that last drive? Like, being on the field and taking video. Are you, like, taking video, or are you, like, as a fan? Like, rooting? Like, what was going through your head?
So the funny part is Cal turns the ball over on four downs, right? At the end of the 4th.
Yes.
I pack it up. I'm like, yeah, they're gonna run. They've been running efficiently. So I wanted to get a head start on packing up my stuff. So I head back to the press room. I pack up all my stuff, And then I'm looking at the clock, and then as I'm exiting with my backpack, I look at the TV just to see, if the game had ended or not. Because the reason I also did that was because I didn't want to be caught in that massive stream of people. Because there's only 2 entrances onto the field, and both go through like fan seats. Like it's not like I have to go through like a walkway. Like a memoriam, there's those stairs that lead down to the field, like from the stands. It's one of those. Yeah. So I didn't want to get caught behind all of these people trying to exit the game. And then because we also only had an hour to get back to our bus. So I was just being a little bit more proactive, just so I wasn't holding anyone back. Anyways, put back on. I'm about to leave and exit the stadium and wait for all of you guys or meet up with whoever to walk back to the bus. And we have the ball back. I'm not like, F this. So I run out. And then I run all the way down, and then I get to the entrance to the field, and I show my pass. The guy opens the gate for me, and I'm there, and I watch everything, the last stuff unfold. The camera's already in the bag and everything like that, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna enjoy this moment as a fan. If we go to overtime, then I'll take then from there I'll take out all my stuff again, so I can take video and whatnot. But for this moment, I'm just gonna watch as a fan. I watched the Hail Mary happen in our end zone from basically where you guys were sitting in 117, but just like at the very bottom. And I couldn't see where the ball was, but I distinctly remember everyone falling to the ground and like everyone's holding their breath, and like the players are still like jostling. So I'm like, okay, is the ball like being ping ponged around? Like, has it not hit the floor yet? And then you see the Notre Dame players like run to the sideline, like enjoy those defenders. And I'm like, okay, well, there's the game. I held my breath for a split second, though, just in case there was like a pass interference call or something that they might call. But nothing from the refs. End of the game. And I said, all right, that's what it is. And I kind of hustled out just so I can beat the crowd leaving. But yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the most classically Cal thing is just that of all the ways for that to end, like I was totally fine. I was like, okay, it's a Hail Mary. It didn't work. They rarely do. And then all of a sudden they would put up the replay, and everyone looks up, and all of the Cal fans just see how close it was to being completed, and are just almost just this collective sigh of, oh my gosh, it was right there. And of course, by no means should Jeremiah Hunter should feel any obligation towards that play. Period. Full stop. That game was lost 6 other ways. But it was pretty amazing that that ball ended up bouncing, and it was so close to pulling off that miracle. And really, it was all Nam's fault for saying bad things about Touchdown Jesus. So if there's really anyone to blame, make sure you blame Nam.
Yeah, it's all Nam's fault for saying things to Touchdown Jesus. But you know what the funniest part about all of this, right? The funniest part about all of this is that Notre Dame fans, at least the ones that I was standing around and listening to, they had this collective thing of, oh my God, here we go again.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And it was very surreal to kind of see. Like, even the Notre Dame fans were booing their own offense in the first half. They were booing their own team off the field. Like, I understand that your team sucks, and but you have just replaced your quarterback. Like, holy crap, man! Like the threshold for booing your team is that low is pretty big. And was just eye opening for me. And I guess that's just the expectation of what you expect your team to be, that you're feeling like, or you express it that way. But that's the funniest thing is at the end of the game where Notre Dame fans were kind of collectively holding their breath and was like, oh, here we go again. But and I was looking at that and I was like, wait, that's usually us. that's usually how we feel. And that's kind of how weird it is that and we could talk about the narrative and stuff down the line about the big picture about this loss, but it's just the perspective that we have as fans of our own team versus after talking to so many of these other teams that we're playing against, whether it's Arizona this week or whether it was Notre Dame last week, and their perspective on our team is so vastly different. And I don't know whether that's because we're so ingrained into this team and we kind of know the ins and outs. But I mean, the question I would want to ask later that I'll still ask now is, are we just blinded by our own trauma about this team and the how we're performing so far? But that's down the line. We still need to talk about this game a little bit.
Okay. Well, I have many questions, so let's definitely surface that later.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing, I don't know how you can. Everyone's going to want us to talk about the refs. I think if you probably watch this game, you're probably like, yeah, talk about the refs.
At least.
And I'm not going to right now. I'm not going to start there. We need to talk about my main thing that I told you after the game, which is when you talk about changing the perception of a team.
Yeah.
And you talk about being different than years past. The one thing that can prevent you from being able to take advantage of improved skill talent is inefficiency and ineffectiveness amongst your lines, your trench play. And a lot of guys of my friends were using the cliches, you win and lose the game in the trenches. Boy, did we lose this game in the trenches. I mean, we got destroyed. Our O-line was terrible. Plummer had open receivers but couldn't even hit them because the second that he was throwing the ball, he had to worry about being demolished by a Notre Dame player.
Yep.
I mean, that's probably one of the worst offensive line performances I've seen. I just think we were so mismatched. And then the flip side of it is you're like, Notre Dame had so much time to pass, and the reason why their fans are booing is Pine could not hit at those first few series. That dude was throwing balls in the dirt. He was throwing just terrible passes. So we can't create pressure with our front, and we can't give ourselves time with our line, with our offensive line. And it was so frustrating because the Cal defense came out and was lights out. Lights out! And we really had an opportunity to go up in this game significantly in the first quarter, and we came out of that first quarter 0-0. And that was the first huge missed opportunity of this game, was the ineffectiveness of the offense, which is same damn story, different season. You talk about trauma, there's trauma there.
I mean, there's absolutely there's nothing wrong with your take. There's no errors. There's no wrong points. All of them are absolutely valid. That's what we saw, and that's what we've been watching the last 3 weeks. It's weird because, some people might say I'm too optimistic, but I wouldn't say I'm I'm like optimistic to the point of no, this team's going to turn it around. Like at some point they'll somewhat turn it around. Like I'm just one of those where like I trust what I saw, but I get why people are saying the things that are saying and like the points that are making because of what you're seeing on the field. And what you're seeing on the field is exactly the opposite of what my eyes told me of what I saw at fall camp. So like this is the hard part. Like I'm trying to just balance like totally giving up on this offense versus like, all right, what are the positives we can at least take into next week, right? Like what can we improve on? And so like I think your points are valid. The trench play has been absolutely horrendous. All right. The glass half full version of what you saw, or I don't want to say glass half full because I feel like I'm rebuttaling against your points because your points are still valid. I want to say optimistic points that fit with the negatives that you're saying. Okay, is that okay? One, defensively, this defense can play with anybody. Like as much as Notre Dame is sucking right now, that the athletic floor and the talent floor hasn't changed, right? It's the same team that everyone thought was a top 10 team going into this season, and they have 4-star, 5-star guys all across the board, whether it's O-line, receivers, running backs, hell, even the quarterback I think is a former 4-star. And it's his first start ever against probably one of the best defenses he'll play all year in terms of scheme, at least, right? We disguised so much stuff that he was probably confused out of his mind in the first half. And that's where the adjustments are made, right? So that's another talking point. But
yeah,
I think that's one like net positive is we don't create pressure, but we still got to the quarterback despite all Americans on that offensive line. We still got to him twice to get sacks. We still got to him, I think, or the running back 4 times to get tackles for loss. Like that's still a net positive. They still held this team to under 24 points, or 20. They held them to 24 points. They could have held them for more, except for some blatant ass weird calls by the refs, which once again, Andy, we'll talk about later. So I don't want to delve into that fully. And then the last thing, and then the flip side of the ball is with the offense, is he got sacked 6 times, and this offense still put us in a position to potentially tie/win the game. Like that's my like positive look on it. And I'm not saying that it was efficient, like they were great, like, or Notre Dame's defense just didn't look good, and we played bad. It's not none of that. I'm just saying in the moments that they needed to get stuff done, they did. It didn't look good early on, right? It did not look good in the first quarter, right? We were 3 and out punting, and them as well, but it was just back and forth punting the entire like first quarter and a half. But the offense slowly started to pick up, and it looked like they found a rhythm. And even that final drive, it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but the fact that we still got a final drive in like that to kind of close it out, I was okay with. I think also because I was looking at this game as this is most likely going to be a loss out of our first 5 games, and it ended up being a loss, and it just kind of fell within my reasonable expectation of how the season was going. So
yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. I think that the big piece here is the defense is fantastic. Absolutely. No questions. There's nothing. The defense is amazing. Like the amount of sacks that we generate because of coverage. We do it a lot. We did it a lot against UNLV, where that quarterback just had all day back in the pocket and
nowhere to go.
No one to throw to. And so eventually just ran out of time because eventually you got to get there. And that was kind of like the same thing. The big adjustment that Notre Dame made was at the half was they just decided, hey, you're totally right. We have top 10 talent. We have an amazing line. We're just going to run the ball. And that worked. It worked pretty well. And if not for a couple of... So the Blake Ansulatos targeting play, was huge because we were going to get them into a field goal, and instead they get a touchdown. And then, of course, you have the, however, how much that ref was paid. I mean, that offsides call was one of the most. There's gonna be one of those Netflix untold stories about that about that referee. I just don't know when it's gonna debut, but it's gonna come out because that was like. It was like a late flag too, because it wasn't there initially, and then he threw it late, and it just was, man, they should really have the ability of reviewing that. It's total bullshit, and it changed the entire dynamic of this game. Should have been 10-0 at half, and Cal, by the way, had an opportunity to kick a field goal late in the game, decided to go for it because that's what the 7-point difference dictated they should do.
Yep.
And if it was a tie game, Cal goes up and it's 20-17. It's a nail biter in a different direction. Hell,
even that field goal didn't even go in. If it wasn't for the offside call, they don't get the ball with a first down to score the touchdown.
No, yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
100%. That's why, it would be.
Yeah, we'd be up, so we could take the 3 points instead of having to go for it on fourth. We wouldn't even need the field goal to tie it.
Well, I mean, no. It was 10-0. It would be 10-0, right?
Yeah.
And then they came back. They eventually got back to 17-17, and then they scored that additional touch. That's how I was looking at that. That additional touchdown that they had put them up 24-17. And then so when we drove field and got into field goal range, the situation of the game dictated that we go for it instead of kicking the field goal. And instead, if you're 17-17 in that scenario because you don't have that touchdown, and obviously they missed the field goal, so you don't have that touchdown, you're up 20-17 if you convert on that, and it changes the entire complexity of the end of that game. It was one of the worst calls I think I've ever seen, and then it was followed up by one of the worst offensive pass interference calls that I've also ever seen. And at that point, I was like, what actual game are these referees watching? I mean, the offensive PI, in no planet ever is that offensive pass interference. Period. It is impossible for that to be offensive pass interference. And it just, it derailed the legitimacy of the outcome.
Also, how is J. Michael Sturdivant's dance a personal foul?
I mean, college football is so dumb in that sense. I talk about this a lot, but the fact that the NCAA has excessive celebration rules is what's wrong with college football. Why wouldn't you mimic what is working in the NFL? It's right there for you. It's not hard. The NFL had those rules and they got rid of them and we're like, you know what? We're going to lean into this. And then I get to watch people do who did that? Well, I got to see where I think it was Sunday Night Football, and he was it was on one of the Rodgers touchdowns. It might have been Alan Lazard. And he's pouring everyone drinks, and then they're just falling down. I thought it was great. I mean, that's the beauty of allowing that, and then you have the NCAA who's like, no, if you pump your arms in the air twice, that's a 15-yard penalty. Yeah, that sets up their entire drive on the kickoff, and it's garbage. It's just, at the end of the day, it's worse for the game. All these things are just worse for college football. It's worse for the outcome. It's worse for our experience. It's worse for the watcher. It's just a negative on the sport as a whole.
Yeah.
So that's my
thing on the refs.
We kind of meandered into it. Yeah. But so my thing is, though, coming full circle here, is I sort of have to balance, I'm not looking at this game making large statements about our offensive coordinator because we don't get to see the offense as it's designed because we don't have a line that can support those type of plays.
Right.
Now, definitely Musgrave is somewhat responsible for calling a 4 and 5 wide set when we're getting whooped on the offensive line anyways.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think I did like that we threw in the double reverse, but it did seem like an interesting call based on how the game was going. I liked it because it was a different look. We tried something that was different.
Same with the Wildcat.
But I hated the Wildcat at the goal line. Yeah. Don't even get me started about that. That was, good Lord. If any offensive coordinator ever listens to this podcast, just QB sneak it. We could have been in the end zone 2 plays before we ended up getting it.
I will say though that I have footage from that Wildcat, and Ott had a wide open lane to his right. If he sees it and he bursts through it, he's in the end zone. But he had already made up his mind. He was going to try and leap the big mush, the big pile.
Yeah, the pile.
Yeah. So that's why he kind of ran into it. But he did. There was a lane opened up like right between the right guard and the right tackle, but he just didn't see it. But yeah, I like, here's the thing, right? And here's the thing that I've been trying to come to terms with, or just kind of rationalize with myself, like, of which it is or what percentage it leans. And I'd love to get your take on this. Like, the offense as a whole, is it an issue with the play calling or is it an issue of execution? But then there's also stuff that goes hand in hand, right? Because as Coach Wilcox always says, like, I have to put my players in the best position to win. So you, as the offensive coordinator, need to be calling plays that seem to be best working with the offense that you have or is working in that particular game. Not just because it, from a play calling and game and a game plan perspective, like, this is what we planned for, this is what we've seen works against that team, so we're going to try and do it, and we've been doing it in practice, even though it's not going to be executable because of the personnel that we have. Like, where do you fall on that scale if one's on the opposite end of the spectrum and the other one is on the other?
You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
I'm biased because I read GA's live tweeting of the actual game. And so for those that missed it, like, Gerald Alexander was live tweeting, and it was really helpful to understand how he saw it. But for me, I think I don't think you can be an offensive coordinator in college football and just be like, we're going to run the plays that we practiced. Like, you have to be able to adapt to the situation that's in front of you. And that's exactly what Notre Dame's offense did. They saw it. They're like, we're not going to be able to pass against these guys. We're just not. We got to go to where our strength is. Yeah. And I think the same for us. It's like, what was our strength? And this kind of gets into another point I had, which drives me crazy about this, is I cannot tell you how many times I turned to my right. I told my buddy Jace, I'm like, Kaleki Latu is slotted out in a wide receiver spot. That dude is a matchup nightmare. He's 6'6". No one can match up with him. You know the amount of times that Plummer looked that direction? Once. One time. Why have the mismatch if you don't take advantage of it? Here's another example. Jermaine Terry is 265 pounds. He is a monster. Why are you not leveraging that individual in blocking schemes, in like short routes to get him the ball? So like the Vernon Davis mold. When he caught the ball, no one on the Notre Dame team could tackle him. Not a single. The entire team had to tackle him. And so it just drives me crazy. So like, I find myself leaning towards being super frustrated with our offensive coordinator, even though I just said that I can't make overwhelming statements here because of the O-line, but there is a sense right now where it's like I've seen the same damn movie like 10 to 15 times, and I'm starting to be like, yo, this is cool, but I've already seen this for 10 to 15 times. Like, what else? And then especially when you watch the Packers and they're running 2 tight end sets, and then Collinsworth's coming on and being like, the Packers they're not running 2 tight end sets. They're running 2 running back sets. And then Collinsworth comes on and is like, yeah, the really interesting thing with the Packers is they have Aaron Jones and they have A.J. Dillon. And they know that they're 2 of the most talented players on their team. And so they just decided to have them both on the field rather than having only one on the field. And I was like, wow, what a concept. You are overloaded with talent at one position, but you build your team around it so that you can take advantage of it. And it worked flawlessly against the Bears. And the Bears have a good defensive front with a defensive head coach. So it's like, it's baffling to me the way we use the tight end position. I do not understand it. Period. And even coming out of camp, I feel like all I was hearing about is like Latu doing well down in their red zone. And like, I don't even see us looking his direction. So,
can I give a rebuttal a little bit? Like not a full rebuttal.
Rebut away. You're rebuttaling all night.
The question I would ask, like, after your thing is, why is there a disconnect in your statements between the offensive line not getting time and him looking at Kaleki Latu's side?
I mean, there is. I mean, at the end of the day, what matters most is you have to be able to create the time for the quarterback to run through more than one progression. Yeah. And we don't allow it right now. And that's why I say this is like, I can't make... You got to understand there's like a conflicted fan in me here. It's like, I don't want to make larger statements that implicate this offense, but yet I'm too tired of seeing this product on the field to not do it. And so it's like, I almost have to fight myself in that way, where it's like, part of me is like, you have the talent, leverage it. And then you have Gerald Alexander being like, why are you running 4 and 5 wide sets and not bringing in, running two or three and bringing in the tight end to block? I felt like there was way more, like, if you specifically, I was watching your video today and you see on that touchdown to J. Michael Sturdivant, we rolled Plummer out to the right. We just didn't do that. We just kind of sat back and were like, well, it didn't work the last 17 times, so why don't we just drop back again in 4 wide, and I'm sure it'll work this time. It just sort of felt like we were. So to your question is like, I think we end up running the plays we practiced more so than adapting to the situation that is actually happening on the field.
Perfectly said. Once again, I said rebuttal, but I didn't mean like rebuttal. I just had a devil's advocate question type thing. We're usually on the same page across most things. So in this thing, I think we both understand where each other is coming from in how we watch like this offense, and that's the most frustrating part. Is like, for you, for anyone who's like read my stuff or read Cal Rivals and Jesse's stuff and whatever, like, you guys don't want to discount what we saw, but that's clearly not what's being seen on the field. For us, it's the exact same way. I feel like I was misleading despite what my eyes saw, because that's clearly not what we're seeing on the field. And it's just kind of, in terms of that stuff, it's just trying to figure out like, what the hell are we watching? Or like, where was the positivity coming from, and where is that shown on the field? Like, the most frustrating part about all this is because we've seen games where it works. When the execution is on point, when the play calling is like just on, everything clicks, because that's how they've practiced, that's what they've been practicing, and just they game plan so well for their opponents. Like, case in point is the big game from last year, right? Like, just offensively, perfectly called game. Couldn't have asked for more. We destroyed their defense, and there was nothing that they could do about it. They had no answer to it whatsoever. And so, like, we've seen that happen. It's just they're just so far and few between, and that's the more frustrating part.
Yeah, it's hard to know when you're going to get it.
Yeah,
and like that's I think what frustrates me is I come out of this game with as few answers as I had coming into it, and I came out of UNLV with as few answers as I had coming into it. Davis, maybe I got a few more answers there, but it's FCS, and really we benefited from the pick six. It was a defensive play that I felt like put that game out of reach, and we just knew like the one new wrinkle is like Jaden Ott and his incredible ability, but at some point you want to have the identity.
Yep.
And we just don't. And like for better or for worse, Bo Baldwin had the Tercel. I don't even know if it's pronounced that way. Tercel.
Sure.
Tercel. But like we knew, I almost find myself wishing that we had a Bo Baldwin offense because at least I understood what the hell we were trying to do. Like in that offense, I could understand his adjustments, what was happening, and I just don't get it. And like I see Wilcox after this game looking like he's ready to murder someone. And I wonder the same thing if he's over here like, how in the hell would we not figure this out? How do we keep seeing the same thing, the same movie over and over and over again with different players? That's the thing. The players are changing. Remember this problem the Giants had? We talked about this on a past pod where the Giants were just firing coaches left and right. And then finally it was like, it wasn't Baggerly. It was, oh my gosh, whatever. I'll figure out his name later.
Is it Schulman?
But
no,
it was Pavlovich.
Yeah.
It was Alex Pavlovich. He's like, at some point you should probably look at the players.
Yep.
So then what did they do? The Giants changed out their whole roster and they won 107 games. So it's like, flip that. What's the constant? We've had a very consistent coaching staff, I'd say, like for the most part. And we've been cycling through different players, but we largely have the same frustrations. I don't know. So here I go again. You can't make larger statements. Like a lot of people are taking, not a lot of people, but there's some people that are just making stupid statements. So it's like, you got to understand what's happening outside of this. Wilcox is here to stay. So let's just stop any of that talk, period. And then secondly, like, I think it's, so that's very important. The second piece here is just like, and this is a critical question, is like, we're on this would be a third change at offensive coordinator. And I just don't know, man. Like it would have to be something extreme for me. But like I need to see something against Arizona that creates an identity, because it just cannot be like, it's going to be really important if we're going to understand how bad our line is. If our line gets absolutely torched by Arizona's defensive line, I don't know, man. The ceiling comes way down on this season because you just can't execute an offense. If our line holds up and you start to see what they're trying to do, and maybe there's some more explosive plays in there and we can run the football well, then yeah, you start to get back behind something that you can really buy into. But at this point, like, it's just too hard. And I think at the end of the day, I'm just tired. I'm like just tired of the repetitive nature of it. And I think Wilcox is too. There's no way. We see him every week. You talk to him all the time. That dude is like as competitive as anyone. So to go into Notre Dame, a game that they expected to win, to have a chance at winning it, and to lose because your offense can't execute, how many times is he swallowing the same damn pill? And he's going to go in and he's going to be like, yeah, okay, like, yeah, that, the targeting play was huge and the refs made a bad call, but he's not going to point to that stuff. He's going to talk about positional battles. He's going to talking about like our line, our left tackle getting absolutely destroyed.
I'm just coming to this realization, right? The two offensive coordinators that Wilcox has hired has been two offensive coordinators on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I didn't realize this until literally just now. Like, maybe people are going to call me stupid, but you had a guy who hadn't coached Division I football ever and was a head coach at a very successful FCS school, right? So he has no experience there, but he's young, he's hungry, and that's the hire you make, right? Just the up-and-coming hire. That doesn't work out. So what happens? He goes to the opposite end of the spectrum. He goes, guy who's been around the block, played at the next level, coached at the next level, but hasn't coached college football in years, but was available. And you go with the experience now instead. That is looking like it hasn't paid off. So, what is if Musgrave is let go at the end of the season? What do? You can't go a full pendulum swing back because that's risking your own job. You got to go somewhere in the middle.
You have to go
in the middle, and I think it's a learning process for Wilcox too, because he's a first-time head coach and he's gotten the hire wrong twice, and now he needs this hire to hit. I don't know where he goes if he goes without Musgrave. I would go with an offensive coordinator that is somewhat young, hungry, and just looking to reestablish himself. Kind of like what we did when we hired Tim DeRuyter a few years back. Like, just one of those types of coaches, right? Who just wants to reinvigorate his career so he can get another, like, higher tier job later. Like, I don't know. Do you make that call to Scott Frost? I wouldn't mind that at all things considered. He has West Coast ties. His offense has worked on the West Coast and in the Pac-12 and nationally. Just didn't work out in Nebraska. So who knows? Maybe he wants a rehab job. But yeah, it's that's just the name I think of just because he's available. There's probably other names out there that I'm not thinking about. But
yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that it's just like a constant mistake that I've made in hiring is you hire for what you don't have. And so you what you do have, you have certain gaps. So you're like, okay, I really need someone that does. You optimize for the complete opposite instead of optimizing for somewhere in the middle of just like a small tweak here or there. But, and I think that when you go that pendulum from one to the other, it can be exactly what we have here. But what the weirdest thing about it is the way that we struggle in the same way. I think that's the weirdest thing about it.
Well, I mean, so my answer to that would be it could have been recruiting. Mm-hmm. It could be that we're recruiting better now and the talent's better, but the play calling and the execution's not as great. Whereas on the flip side, like Bo Baldwin and co, the recruiting wasn't that great with that staff offensively. But we saw towards the end of that tenure, like particularly like the Red Box Bowl, like the execution was on point. So, like,
yes, the end of that season, the execution, those last four games,
the execution was great, and I think Bo Baldwin kind of learned how to finally coach. I think if he got another year, it would have been better. But at the same time, that wouldn't have raised the floor of recruiting that we've gotten so far.
100%.
So, yeah, it's the pendulum swing, man. But yeah, we've been talking about this game for a while. We do have a lot of questions to get through. You ready for this?
Yeah, roll.
All right. So we got the first one from our dude at Cal Cangila. Oh, God, I'm butchering his name. All right. Anyways, his first question: should the offense be more run first or pass first focus?
If you are adapting, if we're going to continually just get beat on the O line,
it's got to be run.
Then you think it has to be run?
It has to be run.
I would think you'd adapt to more screens, try and try and play off a more air raid style of an offense where you get the ball in the receiver's hands or the playmaker's hands faster and try and let them do something versus try and go for downfield shots. But yeah, you and I have different answers on that one.
Yeah, I would go run first just because for offensive linemen, it's probably easier for them to run downhill, like adjustment-wise, than it is to backstep. So just have all 5 of your guys just run at dudes forward. Never have them running backwards. And at some point, one of your talented running backs is gonna bust one open. So,
I mean, yeah, there's an open question of why did DeCarlos Brooks not get more run after that? I mean, the dude was averaging 8.6 yards per carry.
You mean Jaden Knott? Or are you talking about DeCarlos Brooks?
Dude, DeCarlos Brooks, 8.6 yards per carry. He had 5 rushes for 43 yards. He was incredible that game.
Yeah.
Against Notre Dame.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah. Right the week after you were talking about why was DeCarlos Brooks getting touches.
Man, I was talking about that in the stands, and then 4 touches for like 40 yards, and I was like, yep, I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, he was playing great, and I don't know why he didn't get more run.
Second question from the same guy says, most likely win out of Washington State, Oregon State, and UCLA. I can give my pick. I think it's UCLA.
There's no chance.
Do you know that I didn't realize that they played 2 schools from Alabama in back-to-back weeks? Not named Alabama or Auburn.
They have been playing a very...
And they barely won.
Ignore that Chip has Wilcox's number down. So I doubt that it's UCLA. I don't know if I've watched enough Pac-12 football to give an educated opinion on this. I still think it's Washington State. It sounds like, Washington State's defense has looked pretty good, but we should be able to run with any defense. So it's like we can shut down their offense, they can shut down our offense, and we can win a dogfight there. I mean, same thing with Oregon State. Like, we play Oregon State pretty well. It's probably be a competitive football game. But it's part of my frustration is just like, there's no game. Like, we look at this Arizona game. We're like, well, it's going to be a competitive football game. And it's not really so much a frustration as is, it's just like, I just wish like I could kind of come into that game with a little bit more certainty and be like, yeah, this should be a win.
Well, we'll get that in a few weeks when we play Colorado.
Thank goodness for that. That's going to be great. It may end up being Colorado and Stanford. It may be.
Yeah, I mean,
those might be the 2 games we kind of look at and just say, hey, those are wins. But I really thought we'd be coming into this Arizona game and have a little bit more certainty on this one, even if they look way better.
They look great.
But like from where they were to where they are now, like you would hope, I think, with the Cal kind of coming in with it, without going through a 1-11 season, we would have a little bit more certainty in how we would expect this game to go.
All right, we got another one from Matthew Horn. He says, if Cal fails to make a bowl game this year, how worried should Justin Wilcox be about losing his job? I think the seat gets a little warmer, but not to the point where he's going to get fired after this season.
I just think people are going to be like, how the hell was Oregon about to hire this dude?
Probably, yeah.
Like, the question is just going to be like, what was going on there? I don't know. His job's pretty safe. So it would take something... there's just no way. I mean, the odds of us going to a bowl game, I think, are pretty high.
Yeah.
The odds of us getting 6 wins with this team, I still think are pretty high. So, and then on top of it, I don't know what to say.
We'll win some rock fights.
Still just like the dude. I like the dude. I believe in him.
Yep.
I really do.
Yep.
I think Wilcox can take us to and elevate us in this program. I haven't lost any faith in that. I mean, this defense is so good. So good.
Top 10, baby.
It just feels like it's an easier problem to solve than if you're like, we got a middling defense, we got a middling offense, special teams is okay. It's like, dude, you have an elite defense. At least that's our identity. On the defensive side of the football, we have a clear identity. We're putting out players in the NFL. We can recruit behind it. and there's tape that supports it. I mean, there's a lot I think I can invest in on that side of the football. Just got to figure out what the hell's going on offense.
Moving on, Paul Jones on Twitter gives us his take on the Cal offense. Bill Musgrave has been a complete disaster, and it's time to move on. His inability to run a sufficient offense is why the past 3 years have gone so poorly. Cal hasn't averaged 24 points since he got here, well below the college average. It's time to try something different.
I don't think I can disagree. Like, if you look at the overall body of work, the body of work is incredibly disappointing. So it's like, you're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I just can't definitively say if I've ever really seen what the hell we've been trying to do. And I think there's some blame that you could put on Musgrave for that. And I think there's some things like a pandemic and extenuating circumstances that have certainly impacted this team in a pretty negative way. So at the end of this era, I just wonder, Rob, if we'll be sitting back here and being like, what the actual hell was that? Like, do we even really understand what it was? Like, I don't know. I can't say. Everyone's like, that's a Raiders fan is like, oh yeah, I know Musgrave. I know his offense. That offense was great. That's when Derek Carr was, at his best. But then, like, do you feel that way? Like, I don't feel that way. I don't feel like I could take away anything from this offense and tell anyone anything intelligent about it.
The only thing I could say to that point that people make about the Raiders, and I've made that point in the past, is just professional players versus collegiate players. That's the only point I can ever make about that point. We move on to more stuff. Sid writes in, I think we did a good job with what we were working with, like the refs and OL. Doesn't mean this loss hurts any less, though. I really thought it was going to be a dub. What did you think about Jack Plummer's performance at Notre Dame compared to UC Davis in the UNLV games?
You want to go first? I have some strong opinions here.
So the Arizona guys asked me about Jack Plummer today as well, and thinking about it a lot more today, I think the dude's a gamer. I think that's the best way to put it. He does anything for the team to try and win within the confines of the offensive system. He's never going to try and do something that he can't do. He's always going to be staying true to his talents, which is keeping his eyes downfield and looking to make the last play possible, even with the pocket collapsing. And he's just a solid decision maker given what he's dealt with in terms of pocket collapsing, whether he's on the run or mismatches. Like, he's just done everything solidly. It just sucks that we can't get him enough time to really showcase his arm strength. But it's clear that it's there, and we've seen it, right? We've seen him make the deep balls. We've seen him willing to go long, and that's kind of what we've been wanting with this offense, at least all of last season, is take some shots, take some risks. Like, you're going to get some intercepted, but at least that keeps the defense honest that we're not just going intermediate. And so because he's taking those deep shots, and that's on tape, the middle of the field and the short throws to our guys that are playmakers and can get yards after catch are actually catching passes and being able to do that. So ultimately, that's where I stand right now. I don't know if that'll get better as the season progresses, and of course that has to do with our offensive line being able to get protection for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that after Davis and after UNLV, I felt like I really like his arm and his presence. I think what you're talking about, Rob, like you can just see his instincts, and you can see what Wilcox likes in him. It's just like he competes. He doesn't stop competing. I just like analyzing the Notre Dame game though on its own. Like, it was a pretty shit game. Like, he overthrew. Like, you could clearly tell the first couple of series that the 77,000 person stadium and the moment was there was a little bit too much energy there, and he's just overthrowing, and he never stopped really overthrowing guys. So like, this was the first game where I really felt like he was missing by a lot. The other games, like, he missed, but he missed by a step or two. And I think it was that first play where Jaden Ott was split out wide. I couldn't tell if Ott ran the route less ideal than he should have, or if Plummer threw a bad ball. I actually thought Plummer looked from my angle like the ball was in a good position. It just like, sometimes those are off and you don't know why.
Yeah, I think it was just a tad bit outside, like towards the sideline.
But I couldn't tell if Ott was supposed to be running that route that way. Yeah. But overall, like I don't think you could look at the Notre Dame game without being like, yeah, he missed a lot of targets. He missed a lot. He missed high a lot. And, realistically, the game should have been over multiple times before it ever got to that Hail Mary. The flip side, flipping that to the gamer point, he made those scrambles, those plays, that one play where he was directing Ott to get upfield and block for him so he could get sprung loose on the outside. I mean, exactly what 100% substantiates everything that you've said and why I think you can build a successful program around Jack Plummer. I don't think we have to worry about quarterback for for this year and for next year. He is someone that I think brings a lot to the table, and we really haven't been able to see what he does best, which is all the advanced analytics support him as a deep downfield passer, but we can't get him enough time to be able to even look at those routes. So all we're seeing is stuff over the middle or underneath, and it's like super frustrating.
Yeah,
because that's not what he does best. So yeah, won't go down that path, but it's hard for. This is why the Arizona game is important. Can we give time? Can we give Plummer time, and what does he do with that time? If the answer is yes, amazing news for us. And if the answer is double yes, then I actually think we start to understand what this offense might be capable of.
Yeah, I think the point I made on Twitter earlier, I think was it today or yesterday too, is, and I'm not saying that this is going to dictate whether the offensive line plays better or, like that was the reason that we sucked this week in terms of protection. But Notre Dame's defensive line is probably going to be the most talented defensive line we see all year, just across the board. There are teams in the Pac-12 that have one or two guys that are really, really good. But in terms of just a two deep of defensive linemen, this is arguably the best one we'll see by a long shot this entire season. So can you build off of that experience? Can you start to play other games? Be like, dude, this is a cakewalk compared to the Notre Dame game. Can you get that mentality into the O-line guys and then start performing that way? Maybe. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but just from you need the context to it too, right? You can't just like say that they were bad. Like, this is the most talented defensive line that we'll see all season, and we'll see if that is a place of experience or if that's just the level of play that we're going to get from our O-line for the rest of the year. We'll find that out soon enough.
Yeah.
All right.
Well said.
A couple of other ones. Andy, you and I were texting about this today, but Shavit Karen, he or she messages us and says, or they, whatever your pronoun is, Cal currently has the number 84 class in the country with only 7 commits and no offensive linemen. Last year, recruiting dropped to 55th, again with only 14 high school players. Given the new generation of assistants was supposed to raise the ceiling on recruiting, what do you make of this? Is this NIL? I'll say one thing first. The reason recruiting also kind of fluctuates so much is because every year you have a different number of scholarships that you're going to have available to you. Last year, from what I remember, they didn't have that many scholarships to work with. There weren't that many guys leaving. And so that's why the number is so low. Also, the fact is, Andy and we heard this from Wilcox when we did like that football 101 stuff with him. They like to keep 1 or 2 scholarships in their pocket just in case someone is available for them in the transfer portal later in the cycle. And then on top of that, if they don't get someone, then they'll probably allocate that to one of the walk-ons as like a thank you type of thing for their time. So that's why the number fluctuates. So if I don't like the recruiting services that base your ranking based on how many players you recruited, just because the scholarship number changes every single year for every team. One year you might have, like Arizona had a super high recruiting class, but they transferred out so many players and brought in so many players because they had all those scholarships to work with. So I'm not a fan of just like the total number of recruits you bring in. There's just context that's needed. But in terms of the general question, what do you think?
I mean, generally, I don't know. I just checked Rivals. We're ranked like 96th.
Yeah, but it's still so early in the cycle with.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it is really early. It does seem like we're behind.
Yeah.
Like Stanford has 13, Colorado has 17, all 3 stars. Or not all 3 stars, but 13 out of the 17 are 3 stars. Let's see who else is in here. Utah has 13. Oregon State has 16. I'm up now in the 75, so these numbers should start coming down. But it does seem, UCLA is the only other one with 7. UCLA has 7, but they also have 3 4-stars, and then 3 3-stars. So, yeah, not looking great right now. I don't think, like maybe a little bit behind, but really hard to judge recruiting 3 games into the season. A lot of the big games that are going to have a ton of visits are still upcoming, right? Like you're not going to bring out a shit ton of recruits to come watch UC Davis. You're going to wait for Oregon to come to town. You're going to wait for Washington to come to town. You're going to wait to see if you get nationally televised on some of those games. So ultimately, I would just say we have to preach a little bit of patience here and kind of see how things net out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the landscape too is definitely like if we were going for 5-star guys, like at the top, we're probably behind. But the way we're recruiting is we're waiting for some of those dominoes to fall and maybe swooping in on a couple of 4-star guys that just didn't get an offer from, some of the blue bloods and is wanting a place to prove themselves. And, we get that. We get that swing. Like Ott was committed to us and then he wasn't committed to us. And then, ultimately he came back and we sat pat and we waited and that paid off. So I think recruiting is so fickle that you really can't put a judgment call on it until signing day and all those letters of intent have been faxed in.
Early indicators concerning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can be concerned, but you don't need to raise the alarms yet.
Yeah.
It's just, you
exactly.
just like have it on a tab. His follow-up question is, what are your thoughts on Nick's column pointing out the confusing tight end usage in our offense?
I 100% agree. 100% agree, and would say go listen to that previous rant all about our tight ends.
Yeah. That's the weird part about our tight end usage. It's I don't think they've figured out. I know they have specific play calls and personnel groups with them in it. I just don't know if they feel comfortable enough to make that a big part of our offense, or 2, like they're just saving it maybe for games down the line. Like I don't know what exactly it is, but it is there. I have seen it with my own 2 eyes. But it might also be like I tell people this all the time. Like, there's something called a game menu, right? Which is you have your full playbook and you select the plays that you think are going to be effective in the opponent that you're playing that week. You don't use the entire playbook. And then with that menu, you have different variations and different, little wrinkles into it. And that's what you practice all week. And then you come into Saturday and you execute the game menu. If the tight ends might not have been a part of this game menu when they looked at the game tape and they were planning for this defense. They might have realized that that's not where they could be most effective. They saw the Marshall tape, and the Marshall tape dictated that you run inside and push hard and then also make explosive plays on the outside. That's kind of what they tried to emulate today or on Saturday. Ultimately, it didn't result in a win, but I could see why they planned that route, just going off of the 2 games before in which Notre Dame lost. So that's my explanation for it, whether it's right or wrong. David Fried says, talking to an Irish fan, Notre Dame grotto, quote, we have a chapel in every building, end quote. And his quote is, that's interesting. At Berkeley, we have a library in every building.
Amazing.
So good. All right. And then our last one, Pat. Under two different OCs, Cal's offense has been uneven and disjointed at best during Wilcox's tenure. Is it the OC game planning, the players recruited, the head coach, or all of the above that have kept the offense from achieving loftier heights? Not bear raid heights, just loftier.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't have to be bear raid. Really just needs to be about 30 to 35 points per game. Yeah. And you're talking about a 9-10 win team almost every year. I don't know. It's really hard to say. Let's hope that it changes. I mean, that's my thing. It's just like let's hope that we look a lot different against Arizona. And then at that point, if it looks the same, it's like, okay, cool. Like, fool me 4 times. Like, yeah, I think we can just say that the only thing that's going to create a totally looking different offense in October than September is if all of a sudden the offensive line comes together, some new players come in and just completely change the way it looks. And if that happens, if Plummer gets time, I think all of a sudden you're like, wow, this looks way different than it did early in the season. But most likely, I don't know if that's going to happen. So really the barometer becomes first Pac-12 game of the year. How much time are we actually giving? And how much space are we creating for Jaden Ott and others? That'll determine a lot.
Yeah.
But I think we said it well. It's like we explored both these coordinators. They're both super different. The outcome looks oddly similar. And if we knew the answer between players, coaches, I think the nice thing about college football is it's hard to blame the players because they change every year. And the only one that didn't was Garbers.
Yeah.
And I certainly put a lot of blame on him. And that looks incorrect. So I think that to me signals coaching. You know, we have certainly shifted out our QB coach and running back coach and those things, but you know, those I do agree with you. I really think that matters a lot in recruiting and getting the right players into the system. We have the guys. Like, it's clear. Jeremiah Hunter passes the eye test. J. Mike Sturdivant passes the eye test. Jaden Ott passes the eye test. We have the talent. Plummer passes the eye test. So to me, like, ultimately at the end of this season, if we're not successful, it's on the coach.
Yeah.
Because before we weren't passing the eye test. We had receivers that weren't getting separation. Yeah. We had running backs that weren't seeing the right lanes. You know, just before we just weren't doing it. But to your point, we were executing the game plan well. So now I don't see any way after this season that you can't point directly at the coach if it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard pressed not to say that this is a make or break year for Musgrave continuing as the offensive coordinator.
Definitely, without a doubt.
All right, well, that wraps it up for us on the Golden Bearcast. As always, you can find us at Golden Bearcast on Twitter. You can find all our written stuff at writeforcalifornia.com. If you want to relive it, I made a little video that's up on the YouTubes and also on Write for California of just the video shots I took from Notre Dame. You are appreciative, would love a watch and a like and a subscribe to the video. But outside of that, we're good. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.